The time is now 7:04. I would like to start our Board of Directors meeting. Today is Thursday, August 17th. Madam Clerk, can you please call roll?
Yes, thank you. Belvedere. Benicia.
Here.
Concord.
I'm here.
Contra Costa County. Madera.
Here.
Danville.
Here.
El Cerrito.
Here.
Fairfax.
Here.
Fairfield. Lafayette. Larkspur. County of Marin.
Here.
Martinez.
Present.
Mill Valley. Mill Valley.
Mill Valley's here.
Moraga.
Here.
City of Napa. County of Napa.
Here.
Novato. Oakley.
Here.
Pinole.
Here.
Pittsburgh.
Here.
Pleasant Hill.
Here.
Richmond.
Here.
Ross.
Here.
San Anselmo.
Here.
San Pablo.
Here.
City of San Rafael.
Here.
San Ramon.
Here.
Sausalito.
Here.
Solano County. Tiburon.
Here.
Vallejo. Walnut Creek.
Here.
Excuse me, quorum established here.
Darlene, this is Kate Patrice Williams in Fairfield.
Thank you.
Hello, Kay Patrice. All right, moving on to board announcements. Are there any board announcements from any of our board members this evening? All right, seeing or hearing none. Moving on to public comment. This is public open time. This is an opportunity for members of the public to speak on anything that is not on the consent calendar or not on the agenda. Do we have any members of the public that would like to speak at this time? Are there any members of the public in San Rafael? Any of our satellite locations? All right, and do we have any members of the public on Zoom that you might see?
I see no raised hands, Chair.
Thank you. All right, moving on to our Chief Executive Officer's report.
All right. Thank you so much, Chair. I have a few announcements to make. First, I want to welcome two new hires to MCE who are both, we have two folks that are going to pop up on the screen here to say a quick hello. First, Sudhir Sharan, who joined our technology and analytics team as a data engineer. Feel free to say a quick hello, Sudhir. It's great to have you with us. And then also Jane Holland, who joined our public affairs team as a marketing manager. Jane, feel free to say hello.
Excited to be here. Thank you.
Wonderful to have both of you. I also wanted to announce that we've welcomed our newest cohort of 9 summer interns, marking the second year since the launch of our internship program. And we've now had the privilege of hosting more than 33 interns who have contributed contributed to our growth and innovation. And part of our goal of the internship program, just as a reminder, is to create new potential career pathways for folks, especially in our community, to learn about what's happening in the energy sector and how they can get involved. So we're really excited about the growth of this program. And then shifting gears a little bit, I wanted to announce that we have 2 new local solar projects that just came online under our feed-in tariff program. And these have been in the works for a while. Adding these 2 to our list of operational projects brings us to 18 total feed-in tariff projects that are all within our service area. And if you add together all the local projects in our service area delivering power to MCE, we're now at 48 megawatts. So it's a pretty big number. We're close to that, the big 5-0. I think we'll be reaching that in the next year or so. So we'll keep you posted. But the 2 projects that just got finalized are a 1 megawatt project at Byron Hot Springs in unincorporated Contra Costa County, and then a 0.65 megawatt project at Napa Self Storage. So it's great to see projects spreading all around our service area. And then quickly, some energy efficiency news. I wanted to let folks know that we released our 2022 energy efficiency annual report. And we were able to highlight over $2.35 million in rebates that were given out to save energy to our customers with lighting, refrigeration, air conditioning, insulation, and other upgrades that, not only were providing the rebates, but the upgrades themselves result in a lot of savings to the customers. So they'll be enjoying the benefits of that, hopefully for years to come. Over $2 million was used for upgrades in about 1,200 low-income homes. So we're really excited about the success in the residential sector, multifamily in particular. And then also another piece of big news is that the California Public Utilities Commission has approved $158 million in funding to MCE for our energy efficiency programs between 2024 and 2031. So that was dramatic enough to cue the music. I'm very excited. Thank you very much. But seriously, big hats off to our customer programs team that worked really hard on for many months to apply for this funding, and it's really going to benefit our community. So we're excited to start implementing that. And then next, I wanted to let folks know that we've launched our 4 to 9 p.m. load shifting campaign just at the end of June. This campaign will continue through September, reminding folks to shift their energy use away from those hours as much as possible. It really helps us match our load and our generation shape because we have so much solar in our portfolio. It also helps customers save money. It helps balance the grid, creates more reliability. So make sure and spread the word whenever you're talking to constituents about why that's important. And you might see ads popping up here and there from MCE around shifting load away from 4 to 9. We'll be talking more about this at our board retreat in September, and you'll probably hear more about it in the coming month. And then last of all, I just wanted to do an official reminder about our upcoming board retreat. It's going to be held on September 29th. And it'll be 9 a.m. start as usual, but we're doing something a little different this year, which is after lunch, we're going to break and do a field trip. So we're going to have folks, we'll spend the morning doing the usual dialogue with the full board together. And then after lunch, we will all travel to the MCE Solar One facility. We have some new board members that haven't had an opportunity to visit that facility. It's kind of a flagship facility for MCE. It's the biggest public-private partnership with us, that is solar in the Bay Area. It covers almost 65 acres at the Chevron facility in Richmond. And we want to make sure everyone gets to see it. So we'll be doing that for the second part of the day in the afternoon. And then we promise to let folks go early. It'll be Friday afternoon. We don't want folks having to fight traffic. So we should be wrapped up with the field trip by 2 or 2:30 that afternoon. So stay tuned for more details. We look forward to seeing you at that board retreat. And I should just point out that the location for that retreat, we were originally planning to have it in Concord, but due to some logistical issues, we've moved it to the San Rafael Community Center. That should be what's showing up on your calendar. And we look forward to seeing you all there. And that's it for my report. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dawn, for that wonderful report. Also, I want to welcome the new staff as well as the interns. It's great to have so many interns part of Team MCE. Also, looking forward to the upcoming board retreat and our field trip together over to the Richmond site. All right, let's see. Do we have any questions for Dawn with regards to the board report from any of the board members? Any questions from San Rafael? All right. Any questions from the public before we move on? All right, seeing none. Well, Don, you did a great report. There's no questions. All right, moving on to our consent calendar. We have 2 items here to get approval for. Do I see anyone?
I'll move to approve.
Madam Chair. I would actually like to recuse myself from both items. One, I was not there, and the second is a potential conflict of interest.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't get the name of the person who was speaking.
Yes, it's Holly Thier.
Oh, Holly, thank you.
And if we're still waiting for a second, I'll second.
May I have a second?
I'm second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Madam Clerk, please take roll.
Belvedere. Benicia,
Yes.
Concord,
Yes.
Contra Costa County, Corte Madera,
Yes.
Danville,
Yes.
El Cerrito,
Yes.
El Cerrito,
Yes.
Fairfax,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Lafayette, Larkspur, County of Marin,
Yes.
Martinez.
Yes, but I do want to note, I also was not present in June.
Okay, thank you. Mill Valley,
Yes, but I was also not present in June.
Moraga,
Yes.
City of Napa, County of Napa,
Yes.
Novato, Oakley,
Yes.
Pinole,
Yes.
Pittsburgh,
Yes.
Pleasant Hill,
Yes.
Richmond,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
San Anselmo,
Yes, but I was also not here in June.
San Pablo, San Pablo, San Rafael, Patricia, is your mic on?
It was,
Oh.
I said yes, but I was not here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
San Rafael,
Yes, but I wasn't here.
San Ramon,
Yes.
Sausalito,
Yes.
Solano County, Tiburon,
I recused myself earlier.
I'm sorry, Holly, I didn't.
Oh, yes, I had recused myself earlier, so I will not be voting on consent item 1 or consent item 2.
Thank you. Vallejo, Walnut Creek.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Now moving on to our item number 6, our deep green update and adjustment to default. This item is a discussion and action item. But before I turn it over to our MCE interim VP of Power Resources and President and CEO of Pacific Energy Advisors, I'll hand it over to you, Dawn.
Yeah, thanks. I'd love to make a couple of comments as we're transitioning over to the presentation, and just wanted to acknowledge the many years of leadership that our board has exhibited in developing and growing our deep green program and also our light green program. We've had a lot of success since our launch in 2010, getting a lot of folks in our service area a product that has a much lower greenhouse gas emission level than the alternative. And we've been really successful through a number of campaigns in growing the number of folks that are getting 100% renewable option. Just as a reminder, your board made a really exciting decision last fall to pilot the defaulting of customers into our 100% renewable deep green program. And this was really exciting, particularly given the high number of new move-in customers that we do have on a monthly basis. I think this was a bit of a surprise to all of us. It's not as intuitive, but we do have quite a few customers moving from one place to another, moving into our service area. So we knew that making deep green the default was going to have a really dramatic impact on our level of participation. What we weren't sure about is how the supply was going to pan out and how much renewable energy we'd be able to purchase, particularly on a short-term basis. A lot of our renewable energy is in our portfolio under long-term contracts for the existing customers, but to make a quick transition to starting to serve new customers with deep green, we needed to get a lot of supply on the short-term market. And so as you'll hear in this presentation, we had some success in the early part of the year, but lately there's been a lot of challenges, a lot of tightness in the market with short-term renewable supply. And so today we'll be reporting out to you on how the pilot is going and making a recommendation to pause the pilot while we're waiting for the market to stabilize a bit. And we do hope that we can go back to moving in this direction once we see more stability in the market, and at the same time while we work on layering in more long-term contracts. So that's sort of a quick overview. I also want to introduce the two folks that we have on our team that'll be talking about this item this evening. Vidhi Chawla, who's our interim vice president of Power Resources. She's been working very hard on all of our procurement activities over the last year. And then John DeLessie, who's the president and CEO of Pacific Energy Advisors, is here also to respond to questions related to the supply and the market. John DeLessie's been working with us since before day one, helping to launch MCE. So has a lot of history if there are questions from that side of things. So with that, I'll turn it over to Vidhi. I know you're going to walk us through a presentation, so take it away.
Thank you, Dawn, for the great introduction. I want to start by saying good evening, everybody, board members, members of the public, and my colleagues at MCE. I will be providing an update today on MCE's deep green service offering, and we'll be talking about an adjustment to the default. So with that, can we move to the next slide? So I want to start with some background, and I'll keep it quick because I know Don has already provided a lot of this background, but just going back about a year, board approved a pilot proposal from MCE to make Deep Green the default service offering for new customers. And as a reminder, MCE has 3 different service offerings, Light Green, which offers 60% renewable energy, Deep Green, which offers 100% renewable energy, and Local Solar, which offers 100% local solar energy. And before this proposal was approved, Light Green was the default service option for new customers. Then subsequently, in another meeting on March 16th, MCE presented some of the procurement challenges associated with procuring this new renewable energy and a possibility to include renewable energy from sources other than wind and solar to meet the growing demand from Deep Green customers. In addition to that, board also directed MCE to explore a new service offering that will match hourly customer demand with GHG-free supply. Can we go to the next slide? So in this slide, I would like to give an update on the Deep Green success in 2023. So as we were expecting, Don mentioned that we have a lot of move-ins. So as a result of that, ever since Deep Green became the default option for new customers at the beginning of the year, we have seen about a 406% increase in the number of Deep Green accounts. We now have over 67,000 Deep Green accounts, and a little over 10% of those, about 7,500 accounts, are actually receiving Deep Green at no additional cost, and these are our low-income customers. And given the current trend and based on current projections, MC must procure approximately 500 gigawatt hours of additional renewable energy to serve all new Deep Green customers through the end of 2023. Next slide, please. So next, I would like to talk a little bit about MCE's renewable energy portfolio. It was said in the introduction that to be able to make this transition, we will be relying heavily on the short-term market, and we will need about 500 gigawatt hours of additional renewable energy. So what you see here is the MCE's renewable energy portfolio for the next 5 years. MCE typically buys renewable energy through long-term contracts, which can last anywhere from 15 to 20 years, and short-term contracts, which can last anywhere from 1 to 5 years. And we typically have a third party develop an operated renewable energy project, and MCE buys the output from the renewable generator. Now, the graph here shows the split between MCE's long-term and short-term contracts for the next 5 years. And as noted in the dark green, or highlighted in dark green, is the percentage of MCE's purchases where we're relying on the short-term market. And what you'll notice is that we have a pretty heavy reliance on the short-term market in the early years, 2023, 2024, and then the trend changes over the long term as we continue to add more and more long-term resources into our portfolio. Now, it is very important that MC continues to add long-term resources, either through contracting or project ownership, to meet the growing demand for Deep Green and to also meet MC's commitment to increase renewable content of Light Green. So it's a very important thing for us to continue to add long-term resources to our portfolio. Next slide, please. I think from here on, I'll turn it over to John DeLacy, who will talk about recent market activity.
Right. Good evening. I'm John DeLacy with Pacific Energy Advisors. And as Don mentioned, I've been working with MC for quite some time, really since the startup activities, and work closely with Vidya and her team on power procurement. And we work with other CCAs as well in helping them with procure energy in the market. So I was asked to provide some commentary on the current state of the market. Really over the last decade or so, the market has been relatively stable. There's been sufficient supply in the short-term markets. Prices have been fairly stable. Average, usually short-term renewable energy, it's priced as a premium to CAISO system energy prices. So it's a index plus type of an arrangement. And that premium has averaged about 1.5 cents per kilowatt hour for quite some time. It probably ranged from a low of 1.2 to maybe a high of 2, depending on the year. This year, though, there's been a very sudden shift. And so we're seeing a real shortage of supply, and we are seeing prices spike really up more than 4 times the historical average. We've seen recent prices at 6.5 cents. Again, that's just the premium. You still have to pay the cost of the CAISO energy. So a real sudden shift in the market where we went from stability to one where it's really been disrupted. You know, kind of ask yourself, well, what's going on? We've done some research. We found that one of the large investor-owned utilities is running behind on their renewable portfolio standards obligations, meaning they haven't purchased enough to meet their regulatory requirements. So there's about 2,000 gigawatt hours of demand, or of basically shortfall for that one particular utility. And that's quite a bit. So if they're out trying to buy that in the market, they have to make that up by the end of 2024. That certainly could be one of the factors driving the shortage. We're also seeing, you know, a lot of new CCAs that have very aggressive renewable portfolio targets. And so, you know, I think fundamentally we are just seeing increasing demand, you know, demand increasing at a faster rate than supply. You can go to the next slide, please. And then there is this factor as well. And so we're seeing quite a bit, or a huge increase in CAISO ordered curtailments of renewable energy production, both reliability driven curtailments, those are the ones that are ordered by CAISO, as well as economic curtailments, where you know, curtailments can happen when there's too much energy being produced at one time, or in a particular location where the grid may not be able to support it. So that can cause reliability problems, or it can cause prices to go negative. So for economic reasons, it makes sense to curtail production so that you're not having to pay the CAISO in order to get your energy onto the grid. So just between last year and this year, we're seeing about a 2,000 gigawatt hour increase in curtailments, which of course is a reduction in supply. You can see how that trend has been increasing pretty steadily over time. And so, you know, this has happened to some of MCE's resources, and when that does, that means we get less renewable energy, and we need to go out into the short-term market and try and backfill that. And it's not limited to MCE; it's happening to other load-serving entities throughout the state. So that is certainly part of the story. So I think with this, you know, video, I'll hand it back to you. You can talk about, you know, some of the strategies that MCE is using in order to navigate these markets, what you've been doing, and what you've got planned going forward.
Is part of this problem related to the grid capacity and the lack of grid capacity, I should say?
Absolutely, especially in particular locations where we have a tremendous amount of solar that's been built. Let's think of the Central Valley as sort of the most, you know, common location for solar. There's not a lot of consumption there. And so you have a situation where you have all this generation trying to get onto the grid. It's not being consumed locally because there's no huge population centers, and it can't get to, you know, the Bay Area or Southern California because they're just insufficient transmission infrastructure, right? So that's congestion. We're seeing more and more of that. You know, in most of this is driven by the massive increase in large scale solar. You know, as more batteries come on, and almost all new solar now is coupled with batteries, so that'll help to alleviate some of this. But you know, a lot of the solar that is out there, and a lot of solar in MC's portfolio, the existing resources don't have batteries.
Is there much construction of transmission facilities in the very near future, in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, there is, not necessarily geared towards solving this problem. However, there's a lot of new construction planned to interconnect, you know, out-of-state resources primarily, but some of these local problems, they just don't really rise to the highest priority at CAISO through that process, particularly if the impacts are sort of concentrated to a few entities, then they really don't get traction in the transmission planning process. So there's a ton of money being spent on transmission. There's no doubt about it, but it's not necessarily addressing the renewable curtailments. You can go to the next slide.
Thank you, John. So coming back to what MC is doing, in light of this particular issue, so we're committed to increasing the supply of renewable energy to our customers, and therefore we'll continue to build a portfolio of long-term resources. And I'll just give you a few examples. So recently, since 2022, we've executed 7 power purchase agreements, which will add approximately 1,200 gigawatt hours of renewable energy every year once all the projects come online. And just by comparison, until 2021, this number used to be 300 gigawatt hours per year. We would typically only execute 1 to 2 power purchase agreements in a year. So we've almost like doubled our speed here with our procurement. And in addition to that, with all the challenges in the market, in the short-term market, MC has still managed to secure contracts for 6% more renewable energy and potentially adding more as we speak. 6% was the number at the time when this presentation was written in 2023 compared to 2022. And then I think lastly, I can't emphasize this enough, we are in our internal planning, we're really focused on long-term procurement, and we're closely tracking and increasing the percentage of long-term energy in our portfolio. Can we go to the next slide? So with that, I think I would just want to come back to, where we started. We are at a pretty good place right now with the adoption of Deep Green. We're really happy about the progress that we've made in 2023. However, given that this was our first year, it was a pilot and we're still learning a lot, and especially given the current market challenges, we're recommending that we put a pause on defaulting any new customers to Deep Green and reevaluate this decision in 2024. This will give us time to get more detailed data on Deep Green customer usage and better understanding of the markets, and also better understanding of our portfolio, with all the renewable curtailments that we're seeing. And it will ensure that we're able to deliver on the goals that we have set for ourselves for Deep Green and Light Green for 2023. And then additionally, as discussed earlier with the board, we're also looking at an alternative and exploring an option for another 100% GHG-free product that will match hourly customer load with GHG-free supply, and we will provide an update on that in the upcoming meetings. Next slide, please. So to sum it all up here, we're asking the board of directors direct MCE to pause Deep Green auto enrollments and make Light Green the default option at the end of this billing cycle, and also direct MCE to continue exploring a new GHG-free service offering that matches hourly customer demand with supply. And with that, this is the end of the presentation. Next slide. Yeah, I'll open it up for questions at this point. Thank you.
I have a question, actually several. First, let's start with the financial budget. Is what is being recommended material to the budget that was approved? That's question number one.
Yeah, I can start and then others can chime in as needed. So initially, when we proposed to make this change, we were expecting to add about $2.4 million in revenues to MC's budget. However, given the current market condition and the high prices, at this point, as of August 2023, but the customers that we already have in Deep Green, we're expecting a hit to our budget of about $4.5 million until August 2023. And then if we were to pause the Deep Green, we would hopefully not take any further hits on our budget. So that's what has happened so far, and others can add to that if needed, and let me know if you have any further questions on that.
Okay. Yeah, so as a percentage of your total budgets, it's still relatively small. Is that correct?
Yes, but it has a direct correlation to the cost of Deep Green, which is not articulated at this time.
Okay. And then the second question I believe you answered, which is how long are we going to, what's your forecast on pause before we get to some level of, I call it steady state stability?
Yeah. The intent is to get back to you by end of first quarter of 2024. So at the end of this fiscal year, before we start the new budget. Fiscal year. Like January, February, March.
That's the fourth quarter, not first.
You're right. First quarter of the new year or the fourth quarter of the existing fiscal year. Yes. To present you, like Vidi said, about the GHG product, free product, and hourly matching, which we have not done before.
Okay.
So this is our total portfolio. As consumers are using their energy, our intent in this with this new GHG 100% GHG free product to match load on hourly basis. This is a very physical, detailed matching of resource to load. So it's really advanced form of going clean and green.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing some of the modeling on that to see exactly what the implications are to what's going on, and more importantly, as you forecast for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
What we can expect. And then final question is, I know there's been a lot of discussions about price volatility in the marketplace, especially in the short term with the different renewable energies resources. What's being done to kind of check that volatility? Because basically it's supply and demand. If there's a huge demand, some of these out-of-state resources are going to charge whatever they can charge because there's no check on any pricing that's currently in the marketplace.
I mean, unless John or Vidi have anything to add, but going back to what John said, this very large IAU shortfall has impacted the total market unavailable resources. And the costs have gone higher than the most expensive RA we had paid for. It's very much out of whack. So we are hopeful that we will find with longer term contracts who will give us ourselves forward commitment and a certainty on how we will form this new product offering that we would like to introduce to you and proceed with that. I don't know, Vidi or John, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, the current pricing really has no relation to cost. It's well in excess of any measure of cost. And so, it happens so fast. Our hope is it's a bit of a bubble and it subsides. That's, the thinking around let's revisit in 6 months or so. Ultimately, we build more resources, through long-term contracts. What Vidi was talking about, just move more and more of our portfolio into longer-term contracts. Usually the long-term contracts are associated with new construction, and we bring new supply to the market and kind of control our costs that way.
Thank you.
But without the transmission capacity, how does that work?
It is, you're right. You're right. I mean, it's, Bicken, why don't you address that one? You're loaded and ready.
Yeah, thank you. So like John said, we have some large resources in the Fresno area that can't get out because of lack of transmission. And locally in that area, there is so much generation, but there is not enough load. It's physics. You need load to get out the energy. And because of when the CAISO looks at the total system benefits, even at large scale, they fall below what they look at. It's tens of millions, but it's not in hundreds of millions to get their attention. So we are working with the ISO to find a solution to get our own power plant get out of its energy. But there is multi-billion dollars of new transmission being built on the tune of about $5 to $6 billion a year across California. But not much of it is in the area that we have a resource in the Fresno area. Like PG&E is looking at a couple billion.
Solar or wind? Solar?
Mostly solar. And that is a specific area. I mean, they're not picking on that type of energy. It's just that it's getting curtailed because there's not enough transmission.
Director Darling.
So this is an interesting dilemma, and it sounds like it kind of snuck up on us. Many cities, including Walnut Creek, have adopted sustainability action plans that include specific commitments to increase deep green. Should we be backing off of those commitments during this time period? I mean, we don't want to be paying people to promote deep green if it's going to create problems.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in on that one. I think the answer is not at this time. I think that the transition to making deep green the default created such a steep increase in demand. That's really what's driving the conversation this evening. We have been looking carefully at what we would anticipate from regular opt-ups from folks requesting folks that aren't defaulted into deep green, but are requesting deep green. And I want to point out that we also have on the screen Zay Perrin and JB Ackerman, who oversee our customer interface and public affairs. Zay has been really helpful in kind of looking at what we would project going forward without the default to deep green. And we feel confident that we would be able to accommodate residential customers continuing to request an opt-up to deep green. On an incremental basis, it has never been a problem. It's really the default to deep green that is creating the crunch right now while we're seeing this bubble in the market. And we think it's very likely that by the beginning of 2024, we will be able to come back to the board and potentially try piloting the deep green default again once the market becomes more stable. And on a parallel path, as Vidi mentioned, we'll be working to get more long-term renewables under contract. Obviously, that will take some time. The transmission delays are likely to impact getting some of those contracts online. So we'll be looking at that closely. But I think really that the unique problem we're trying to solve right now is really just tied to the default pilot that we launched at the beginning of the year.
Okay, so as we bring in new partners or we have individuals opt up, we're expecting that to work okay and not cost millions of dollars. I hate to spend money promoting something. But
I think the one exception I should have clarified is large commercial customers. We think small commercial customers won't be an issue, but large commercial or industrial customers requesting deep green, we may need to give them a target date that's a few months out to make sure we can procure for them.
Okay. I'm curious on the curtailments. Have we adjusted our acquisition planning to deal with the increasing curtailments? I thought those were originally just in the spring and the fall months. Have they switched to curtailments also in the summer months now?
I can start by answering that question, and then Vic and our others can join me. So yes, curtailments are happening in summer months. They're happening, every day. So that has definitely, and you've seen that in that graph, the significant jump in curtailments from 2022 to 2023. But I think what we're doing to address that, there's a few things that we're doing. So we're working on the specific projects where we have curtailment issues with the CAISO to come up with solutions to solve the curtailment issue. specific projects that MCE buys renewable energy from. And then for future contracting, we're building in some prepaid curtailments into the contracts, so that we're not paying our counterparty when we're not receiving energy. So that was the original contracts. That's how we had them. And then more importantly, we're adding a lot of storage contracts in our portfolio as well that do help with shaping that solar, so that we have the flexibility to move that solar around, so that it just doesn't end up getting curtailed in the hours where there's not a lot of demand, and we can actually shift it to the later hours in the evening where there's actually demand. So that's another thing that we're doing. And then lastly, we're also taking a closer look at the interconnection queues at specific locations to see what other projects are going to be interconnected in the area, and what impacts it could have on our project, and what kind of specific curtailment impacts it could have on our project. It is very hard to forecast what's going to happen in the next 20 years, but we're trying to do the best we can to be either prepared or for mitigating some of these impacts, or trying to not get into agreements where we do see these potential curtailment issues.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any additional questions here in Concord? Director Nakamura?
Thank you. That's a follow-up to what Director Darling was asking about contracts of people going opting up. The city of Concord just recently opted up to Deep Green. Is this something that cities and industrial contracts are going to be asked to pause?
I don't anticipate that we would rescind any opt-ups that have already happened. This would be on a going forward basis, because this is this is really a board policy that we would be following, that hasn't been established yet.
Okay, thank you.
And I just to give a little context to our opt-ups versus our default. In the first month of default, we opted up 4 times as many customers automatically as we did for voluntarily opting up for the entire year of 2022. So we had just over 1,200 opt-ups in 2022, and that was across all residential and non-residential customers. And we saw over 4,700 default opt-ups in just that first month, totaling over 53,000 default opt-ups this year. So the average for demand for opt-ups doesn't present an issue or concern at this time.
Director Fong?
Yeah, I question on the long-term contracts. I believe traditionally a long-term contract term is about 3 years, right? Is it 3 years? How many years? 20 years? Okay. Given the volatility in the marketplace and a lot of what, these challenges, do you anticipate that the definition of the term of a long-term contract is going to be reduced significantly from 20 years to a much shorter period of time? Because obviously that has implications on the financials.
I'll let maybe John answer that.
Yeah, I don't think so. There's 10 years is a regulatory standard, which kind of is an anchor point out there. But probably more importantly is just that the way these projects are financed. They like to have usually tends pretty much on the short side, usually like 15, 20, even 25-year terms, right? To enable to get the financing. So I don't really see the current market sort of disruption changing that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's important. It's the likelihood of success of obtaining these long-term contracts that are reasonable for us. And so I'm just trying to get a feel as to what our likelihood of success will be.
Director Zorn?
Thank you. So I'm a little concerned because I feel like one thing that this report is lacking is stating what the anticipated volumes that were needed before when we decided to adopt this, so last fall, that's not reported here. So did we completely misjudge how much people were going to be defaulting in? Because based on the fiscal impacts, we projected a $2.4 million net revenue, and yet we instead are having a net cost of 4.3. That's a $6 million net, right? So what did we think was going to happen? And if we didn't think that we'd have this many automated opt-ins, why not? And then if we thought about that was about the amount we were going to have, did we not anticipate not having access to enough energy? It's all kind of the same question, I think.
Yeah, I can jump in on that real quick, and Vidi, you may want to add, but really we had a good sense of how many customers we'd be adding. That was not different from what we anticipated. Really, the one thing that's different is the cost in the market of buying the resources. So that, as John was explaining, there's been a very big change in the market that we were not anticipating, about 3 or 4 times cost difference in the resources that we were planning to buy. Does that answer your question?
I think so. I know when we originally had this discussion, I was really concerned about it because what it meant to me was that we are opting in customers at the higher rate, right? So they were going to have to spend more money. And so it's kind of ironic that we now can't afford it either. So I guess one question that I have then is kind of a follow-up to Director Nakamura's question. Martinez also opted in for all of our facilities to be deep green, I think over a year ago. So the question there then is MCE losing money on the existing deep green contracts as well, not to mention the ones that haven't yet opted in?
Yes, we are. And we are not talking about a rate increase to our deep green customers. But yes, at the current rate, which is the same rate that it has been all year, we are taking a loss right now. So that's the reason for the recommendation.
Yeah, just wanted to add one more thing to what Don said. So we knew the volume. We knew what we needed to buy. We did not even dream about these kind of costs. And we lost the availability of these resources. It's just not enough because we found, like John explained, significant other pressures came in end of this year. And we're projecting for next year. So what Director Fong is talking about, getting these long-term contracts will be a challenge, right? But our projections were correct, but we did not anticipate this really a significant pivot in lack of availability and extreme prices.
So just to repeat back what I heard Don say, we're not going to be raising rates anytime soon, or do we have any sort of commitment to that? I feel like we just raised rates for basically the same reason.
Yeah, we typically go through our rate setting process in the February-March timeframe, around the same timeline that we're doing our budget setting for the year. So we would be looking at any rate changes early next year through a separate conversation.
Thank you.
Are there any questions in our San Rafael location?
Yeah, thank you. 406% increase, that's huge. Are we communicating this with our constituents, with our clients? How are we handling that?
I'm happy to address that question if you'd like, Dawn.
Yeah, go ahead, JB. Thanks.
Thanks. JB Ackman, Vice President of Public Affairs. So we have already begun the process internally of going through all of our collateral to make the necessary updates to indicate if the board does choose to act on this, that we would be pausing auto enrollment. So we've got a good list going of all of the documents. It'll be updated beginning tomorrow. We have a move-in mailer that we send out to all of our new customers, letting them know that they are, part of MCE Those will be adjusted to reflect whatever decision the board makes here tonight. Then we have worked closely with Zay's team and Biddy's team to come up with language for those larger customers who may not be approved for enrollment until early in Q1 based on their load profile. For other customers, we've come up with some additional back-end communication about the process. As Biddy mentioned, we do anticipate that most of our small load profile customers, like our residential users who are contacting us and asking to opt up, will be opted up based on existing resources. So this would really only affect a very small percentage of customers who may be large profile customers who may be interested in opting up.
I have a question.
Over in the San Rafael location?
Yeah, Gabe Quinto, El Cerrito. Thank you, Chair. My question regarding the deep green default. So, I do support that pause for the rest of the year and look forward to reevaluating that. I know we did include, was that 7,500 low-income homes within the deep green and supported that originally. But looking at that now, should we put a pause for low-income homes as well then? Would that be everybody?
I think what we're talking about is just a pause to all new move-in customers, whether they're low income or not.
Okay. And then looking at the 100% GHG free product, what are you looking at in particular?
Yeah, great question. And I want to just point out that this is an interesting exploratory exercise that we've been going through. We talked about this idea with our technical committee in the spring. And the idea is to explore if we could offer a product that is that matches hourly usage to hourly generation, and what the price would be for that, and what would the availability of resources be for that. So it's something we'll be discussing in more depth at upcoming technical committee meetings, but it's still in the early stages.
I actually had a comment or a question through the chair, if I may. Holly Thier in San Rafael, town of Tiburon. So I am definitely a glass is half full person. And I know that it's very, very disappointing that we have prices that have gone up 3 to 4 times and that we have an unexplained shortage in renewable energy. But look at what we've got. A 406% increase since December. We've got deep green enrollments as of August 2023 are at maximum capacity, 67,000 accounts. And this organization has made it so that 7,500 customers who could not afford to be in deep green, we have ensured the equitable access for those customers in our discount rate program at no extra cost for them to have deep green. So I am proud of this organization. I am excited. And also we are now also working on our own GHG product. So this is the mission of the organization. This is what we stand for. And I am very proud. And I think the glass is more than half full. And I know that those prices are going to come down and we're going to see an increase in renewable energy. And I think then we can put this program back into place. But we have figured out the magic bullet for enrollment, and it is definitely the way that we did it. Switching from the opt out to opt in. Yes. Opt in to opt out. Yes.
Thank you, Director Tier. Don, I cannot see the lights over in San Rafael. So if there's someone you can please help me call on them.
Yes, happy to. And I wanted to let you know at this time, we don't have any members of the public. We'll let you know if that changes, so you don't have to ask at every moment. But I see Director Beckman and Director Painter Oh, and Director Rice, and possibly also Director Gregory, all have a comment.
Thank you. Just a few questions. First, in my reading of the staff report, I had kind of understood that the fundamental issue here is one of resource availability, not so much of cost. I understand that cost was an issue too, but it looked to me from the staff report like even if we were really willing to spend big to get those last drops of renewable energy, we just kind of hit a wall at some point where there isn't any left. And I wanted to just confirm that understanding. Is the fundamental issue cost, availability, or both?
Both.
Okay. Because they are somewhat different narratives from, especially from a public perspective. And I know that we've received public comment on this, but it's helpful for me to reinforce that understanding that the issue here is not that we're trying to dodge spending at a particularly pricey moment. It's more that when push comes to shove, those resources aren't there for us to buy. So that helps. Thank you for that clarification. Another clarification, my understanding is that rather than sort of narrowly just pausing Deep Green as a default offering, we're actually really sort of pausing the availability of Deep Green. Is that correct?
No, we would still be allowing folks to choose to opt up to Deep Green as long as they're a residential or small commercial customer. So that would not be the case. We'd simply be reverting to where we were before we launched this pilot in January.
I
We
believe
think
your
we-
mic is off.
I don't know how that happened. Did I turn that off? Okay. The second part of that question was basically if we're going to allow folks to continue opting up, even though we're at maximum capacity right now, is the reason that we're able to do that because attrition creates small amounts of additional capacity going forward?
It's more tied to the small incremental increases that we tend to see with folks opting up to Deep Green. We think we have adequate supply to cover that incremental choice-based opting up adequately.
Thank you. And I've just noticed this does go off by itself. And last question, can we just, if we have folks that reach out to us while we're in this difficult situation, if we have folks that reach out that say, hey, we'd like to opt up and we're not able to, if they're like, for example, large commercial customers or something like that, can we please be sure to circle back with them once the situation resolves and make sure that we're able to get them into Deep Green once we've got the resources?
Absolutely. And what we'd like to do is give them a target date for when we'd be able to enroll them. So it wouldn't be a no, it would be a yes in the future, in the near future.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Can we mutter the name of the investor-owned utility that we think is doing this? Probably not. Never mind.
There's three letters in the initials. I'll just leave it at that.
We have a,
You're finished.
I think Director Painter had a
Okay,
hand up.
thanks. Yeah, I just want to make a quick comment to reiterate on a couple of points that have already been said. You know, it is a pause, but I think we're going to really rely on MCE and staff to give us the tools we need to get this message out in a way that shows that, you know, we are moving forward, all the things that have been said, and I won't reiterate, but if this is going to happen, and we haven't voted on this yet, but if it will, I think that's information we're going to need very quickly. I think Councilmember Darling said, you know, many of us have put this in our general plans, have talked about it and continue to talk, and we want to keep talking about it. We just want to do it in the right way and send the right message so that we don't lose confidence in our customers. And yeah, you're shaking your head, you get it, but I think it's worth reinforcing. Thank you.
Yeah, and I really want to emphasize the great viewpoint that JB articulated. I think that is the right message. Is we're running a marathon, and we've made so much great progress this year, and that's worth celebrating. And we've made it to a milestone with so many new Deep Green customers now. What is it, Jamie? I think we're at a nice round number. Yeah.
67,000.
67,000.
When we wrote the staff report. So
yeah, over 50,000 is huge, and yeah, 67. So I think it's a great story, and we're not going backwards. We're just taking a break from the marathon, and we're going to jump right back in there as soon as we can. And Director Rice, I think, had a hand
Yeah,
up.
thank you. I have a question. I may have missed this on the slide. So I'm thinking about the mix between how much of our portfolio is short-term versus long-term contracts. And do we have a target for what we would like that to be in any given year that we shoot for?
Yeah, this is Vidi or John may want to weigh in on how we break that down. I know we always like the long term when we can, but we do a mix of both.
I can start, and John, feel free to add anything. I think ideally we would just want to use short-term contracts for portfolio balancing, but it will take a while to get there to build that portfolio that primarily consists of long-term resources.
So on a percent, what does that look like on a percentage basis? Is it 75, long-term 25? That's what I'm looking for. If we as a, would we be shooting for something generally that we're always trying to sort of hit, recognizing we're going to always need short-term contracts for something?
Yeah, I believe that's in our integrated resource plan. John, do you have a rough number in mind? I don't recall it off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's that specific, but something I would say on the order of 80% with 20% in the short term market's a pretty good mix, and you want to kind of move to that over time. You don't want to just go out next year and try and write all these long term contracts at one point in time, right? Because the market might change and you might get better prices at some point in the future. So it's kind of something that you build to. I think, there's been a lot of growth at MCE over the last several years with just look around the room, right? All the new communities coming in. So it does take a while to get these new renewable projects built under contract. But, something like that where, you don't want, you just want to be in the short-term market for a relatively small percentage of the overall renewable need. So probably no more than 20%.
Okay, and so that makes sense, and it makes sense that we wouldn't be able to adjust overnight also when things happen. So the thing I'm thinking about is if one of the variables that was really driving up prices on the short-term market was the larger utilities needing to meet their regulatory bars, and they were doing that with short-term contracts, doesn't that mean that they're going to be actually moving into the long-term market in order to maintain that portion of the portfolio in renewables? And I guess my question is specific in general, and maybe it's something that Iken can answer. To what degree do we try to strategize on what competitors for the renewables, what their strategies are, and what might be driving them? And frankly, I'm actually kind of surprised that we didn't foresee the larger utilities actually having to jump into the short-term market, because I'm assuming we know how much of their portfolio is where it needs to be in terms of meeting those regulatory bars. We don't know.
Well, it's really interesting because over the last several years, if CCAs have formed and customers have moved from the utilities to CCAs, the utilities have had excess renewable power. And so MCE has purchased a lot of historically of renewable power from PG&E, Edison, the three IOUs. So it's interesting now. It's quite a shift because, before CCAs, of course, the utilities were the only game in town. And so they were buying a lot of renewables under long-term contracts, et cetera. And then we've, last 10 years or so, they've been selling those off effectively. Some of those have been paid through the PCIA, which is another story, but they've had excess. And so now we're seeing for the first time in a long time where, they are now needing to buy renewable energy. And I do agree with your comment. I think it is probable that we'll see the utilities back doing long-term renewable procurement, which they haven't done for several years because they've had excess in their portfolio.
You. And just to add, I do think it's the right move to put a pause. And I do think we still have a good story to tell no matter what. And I guess my last comment on that would be is I'm thinking if we MCE has the target to go to 100%, get to 100%. I would hate for us to also to be competing with other CCAs. And anyway, it's an interesting, we don't need to get there first. We want all boats to lift, as it were. So I don't know what those conversations look like when you're at your CCA association meetings, but I think it's a worthwhile one to have.
Director Hills?
Yeah, so my question is provoked, I think, by the question that Director Beckman had asked, which was whether or not this was an issue of supply or costs. And the response was that it was both. And if that's the case, I think it would be good just to have a response in the public record of what the contrary case would be, meaning what would happen if we rejected the staff direction. If there's no electricity out there, do we really have a choice here? No. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, just to be blunt, we paid anything to make sure that we have enough to make the year for our portfolio, for your direction. This was a very successful pilot, but personally, with the staff that we work for, it was not, it was challenging. We tried very hard before coming to you. So the shifting in the market, that is really surprise move from a very large IOU to be buying this much, it's not normal. So I'm just giving you my personal opinion, but we want to get around this and really hit it much better than we did last time to have a permanency to this. Yeah. Thank you.
Donna, are there any additional questions in San Rafael?
Okay. Oh, yes, I see Director Quinto.
Thank you. I wanted to mention that, this is because of the lack of PG&E to work with CCAs on transmissions and getting everything connected. And I know it'll be worse in the years coming. We've had a mild summer this year, a very mild summer at least for Marin in West County. So we haven't had our summer yet. And I know we will have to deal with our summer months like the rest of the country has had to deal with. So looking at that, and I do remember there were a couple of bills out in Sacramento dealing with transmission. And I'm hoping we can collaborate more with our partners in Sacramento to help CCAs with that in the future.
And Chair, I don't see any other hands up here unless I missed anyone.
All right, thank you. Director Quinto, we have a summer over here in Central and East Contra Costa County.
It's
It's
been
hot.
foggy every day in El Cerrito, Kensington.
Well, when you want some heat, come and join us. Director Williams, I know you're in the satellite office. Do you have any questions or comments? Don't mean to put you on the spot. I see the thumbs up. All right. Director Hills?
It just occurred to me, I remember looking at my calendar. So I'm going to be at Cal Cities next month. And I think that our next meeting coincides with that per Director Quinto's question. I'm just wondering if there was a message that wanted to be conveyed by members of MCE when we're up there. That would be good information for us to know prior to, especially since I don't know that I'll be able to make the next meeting.
Thank you so much for offering. Our Director of Legislative Affairs is with us here tonight. And so I'm sure she'll be happy to send out some comments, some talking points that would be useful to bring up. Transmission is a big issue. Procurement autonomy is another. Resource adequacy issues is yet another. There's a few things rumbling around up there that we'd love for y'all to be able to weigh in on. So we'll be sure and get you some current talking points before that happens.
And a room at the League of California Cities so we can have a meeting if we need to.
Yes.
Because I think we'll all be there.
Yeah, the Cal CCA office there is a Cal CCA office in Sacramento, and they're always open to having groups gather there. So we'd be happy to connect you up with a room. It's right across from the Capitol.
Thank you. Do we happen to, I know we don't have any members of the public here in Concord. Are there any members of the public in San Rafael?
No, we don't have any members of the public here.
Do we have any public comment from anyone via Zoom?
I see no raised hands, Chair. Thank you.
All right. Well, we're moving on.
I'll move,
sorry.
this is an action item, right? So I'll move, we adopt the staff recommendation to pause deep green enrollments and make light green the default service and direct staff to explore a new service offering 100% GHG free product.
And
Thank
I
you.
think we have a second over here.
Second, Barbara Kohler, Fairfax.
Before we vote on this item, Director Fong had a question.
I have a note here from Jessica that we did have written comments from the public. I want to make sure.
Oh, we got those.
in the record. That was good.
So he just wanted to make sure the written comments was in the record, and they are. Okay. So a motion by Director Perkins and a second
Kohler.
by Director Kohler. Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Belvedere. Benicia,
Yes.
Concord,
Yes.
Contra Costa County, Corte Madera,
Yes.
Danville,
Yes.
El Cerrito,
Yes.
Fairfax,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Lafayette, Larkspur, County of Marin,
Yes.
Martinez,
Yes.
Mill Valley,
Yes.
Moraga,
Aye.
Napa, City of Napa,
Yes.
County of Napa and 4 Napa cities, Novato, Oakley,
Yes.
Pinole,
Yes.
Pittsburgh,
Yes.
Pleasant Hill,
Yes.
Richmond,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
San Anselmo,
Yes.
San Pablo,
Yes.
San Rafael,
Yes.
San Ramon,
Yes.
Sausalito,
Yes.
Solano County, Tiburon,
Yes.
Vallejo, Walnut Creek.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to item 7. Item 7 is for approval of amendment to MCE operating rules and regulations. And we will be hearing from MCE legal counsel. Caroline, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Evening, board members. Chair said, my name is Caroline Lavenue, legal counsel at MCE. And tonight I will be discussing agenda item number 7, which is the proposed amendment to MCE's operating rules and regulations, which for the purposes of tonight's discussion, I will be referring to as ORR. For Article 8 of ORR, amending the ORR is a 2-step process. The first step is that the amendment must be proposed at a regular board meeting. The second step is that the amendment must be acted upon at the next board meeting. As many of you may recall, at the June board meeting, the first step was completed when your board authorized the proposed amendment to the ORR to proceed to the next step, which is authorization for approval at tonight's board meeting. The version that your board authorized to proceed in June is the one that you received yesterday via email and is the one that has been distributed today with a slight change. MCE's initial participants listed Ross as one of the initial participants. There were actually only 5, not 6 initial participants. So the naming of Ross as the initial participant will be struck from the version that you are reviewing. Other than that, MCE staff is recommending that your board approve the proposed amendment to MCE's ORR for final adoption. Does anyone have any questions before this item is moved to a motion?
I do from Richmond. I see that Article 6 was taken out. Was it condensed into another article or was the section removed?
Happens every time. It was actually clerical error. We found that in the initial version of the ORR, the articles were misnumbered.
Chair, I don't see any questions or comments here in Centerville.
Okay,
Madam Chair, I'll move approval.
Second.
all right. A motion made by Director Murphy, seconded by, if you could help me, Don, I can't see. Director Kohler, was that you?
Director Thayer.
Director Thayer, sorry. Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Belvedere, Benicia,
Yes.
Concord,
Yes.
Contra Costa County, Corte Madera,
Yes.
Danville,
Yes.
El Cerrito,
Yes.
Fairfax,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Lafayette, Larkspur, County of Marin,
Yes.
Martinez,
Yes.
Mill Valley,
Yes.
Moraga,
Aye.
Napa, City of Napa,
Yes.
County of Napa and 4 Napa cities,
Yes.
Novato, Oakley,
Yes.
Pinole,
Yes.
Pittsburgh,
Yes.
Pleasant Hill,
Yes.
City of Richmond,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
San Anselmo,
Yes.
San Pablo,
Yes.
San Rafael,
Yes.
San Ramon,
Yes.
Sausalito,
Yes.
County of Solano, Tiburon,
Yes.
Vallejo, Walnut Creek.
Yes.
Motion carries, Chair.
Thank you. The next item is MCE Climate Action Leadership Award nomination. This item will be presented by Stephanie Chen, MCE Director of Legislative Affairs.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, directors. Stephanie Chen, Director of Legislative Affairs, here with probably my favorite report out to you of the year. This is staff's nomination for MCE's 2023 Climate Action Leadership Award. This award was first presented in 2020, and it's a way for MCE to recognize and celebrate policymakers and advocates who have made really significant contributions towards California's fight against climate change through policies that advance clean energy and benefit CCA customers. So at this time, staff would like to nominate for your consideration Assemblymember Damon Connolly. Mr. Connolly was elected to the California Assembly last November representing the North Bay, and he's already emerged as a committed champion for environmental progress and climate action. Assemblymember Connolly sits on several key environmental and energy committees, including the committees on utility and energy, environmental safety and toxic materials, and the budget subcommittee that oversees energy and climate-related spending. Assemblymember Connolly also serves on the Select Committee on Electric Vehicles and Charging Infrastructure, the Select Committee on Offshore Wind in California, and he co-chairs the Joint Legislative Committee on Climate Change. In his first year in office, or rather really his first 8 months in office, Assemblymember Connolly has authored 22 bills, including AB 998, which identifies opportunities to upgrade existing biomass combustion plants to newer, cleaner technologies, very much in line with the set of responsible biomass principles that MCE has adopted. Assemblymember Connolly's bill will support GHG reduction and also will support air quality improvements in nearby communities, both of which are key focuses of the Assemblymember's leadership. Prior to his election to the Assembly, Mr. Connolly served as a Marin County Supervisor, Vice Mayor of San Rafael, as School Board President, and as California Deputy Attorney General. During his time as a county supervisor, Mr. Connolly was also a founding member of MCE's Board of Directors and served as chair of the board from June of 2011 to November 2014. In his role as an assembly member, Mr. Connolly has continued to demonstrate his support of community choice by advocating for bills that maintain CCA's independent procurement authority, and also by speaking up for CCAs in committee hearings related to reliability and interconnection, some of these really hot topics of the day. His leadership has and will continue to advance climate protection for the state, in addition to funding for California communities across a wide range of issue areas, not just limited to climate and clean energy. So in recognition of his proven track record of environmental leadership, as well as his active role in growing the community choice movement across California, staff respectfully recommend that MCE present the 2023 Climate Action Leadership Award to Assemblymember Damon Connolly at the board retreat next month. With that, thank you for your time, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions? In San Rafael, we'll start over there.
I see no questions here.
All right. Any questions? Seeing none. All right. Do we have any public comment on this item via Zoom?
I
All
see
right.
no raised hands, Chair.
Thank you. Well, what's the pleasure of the board?
This is Eli Beckman, Corte Madera. If it pleases the chair, I will move the staff recommendation on this item.
And I'll second it.
Who was this? Who was the second?
Holly Fear.
Holly. Thank you.
Motion made by Director Beckman, seconded by Director Thier. Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Belvedere. Benicia.
Yes.
Concord.
Yes.
Contra Costa County. Corte Madera.
Yes.
Danville.
Yes.
El Cerrito.
Yes.
Fairfax.
Yes.
Fairfield.
Yes.
Lafayette. Larkspur. County of Marin.
Yes.
Martinez. Mill Valley.
Yes. Yes.
Moraga.
Aye.
City of Napa.
Yes.
County of Napa.
Yes.
Novato. Oakley.
Yes.
Pinole.
Yes.
Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Pleasant Hill.
Yes.
Richmond.
Abstain.
Ross.
Yes.
San Anselmo.
Abstain.
San Pablo.
Yes.
San Rafael.
Yes.
San Ramon.
Yes.
Sausalito.
Yes, happily.
Solano County. Tiburon.
Very enthusiastically, yes.
Thank you. Is that 2 votes? Yeah.
3.
Vallejo. Walnut Creek.
Yes.
Motion carries, Chair.
Thank you. The next item is item number 9, proposed resolution number 2023-09, accepting congressionally directed spending project from the Golden Fields Office of the United States Department of Energy. I will turn this over to you, Don.
Great. We're actually going to hear from our Chief Legal Counsel, Catalina Murphy.
Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Chair. Good evening, board members. I'm excited here to present this proposed resolution, 2023-09. This is seeking to have your board approve the third and final pending earmark that has been awarded to MCE for the fiscal year 2023. As you may recall, your board approved back in April 2 other pending earmarks that MCE had been awarded. This will be our final one that's pending. And it is for an award of $1 million with a required match fund of MCE of 50%. So the way awards with a 50% match work out is that the Department of Energy, who is administering this award, will provide $500,000, and then MCE would be required to contribute $500,000 as well. The awarded funds would be used to build upon MCE's efforts to support and install customer-owned behind-the-meter battery energy storage paired with solar for at least 4 critical facilities or facilities that provide essential services that are located in MCE's service area. The proposed resolution would allow MCE to accept the awarded funds and enter into any necessary agreements with the Department of Energy to receive the funding, as well as authorize the contribution of MCE's required 50% match share. So staff recommends approval of this proposed resolution number 2023-09, accepting congressionally spended funding project from Golden Fields office from the U.S. Department of Energy. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from directors here in Concord? Seeing none, any questions over in San Rafael from directors?
Not a question, but I'd be happy to make the motion. This is Director Rice.
All right, Director Rice, before you make the motion, do we have any public comment?
I see no raised hands, Chair.
All right, thank you. We have, I'll turn it back over to you, Director Rice, to make the motion.
Yes, I'd like to make the motion to adopt the resolution allowing MCE to accept the awarded funds and enter into all appropriate agreements.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Director Rice, seconded by, was that Director Quinta?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Belvedere. Benicia.
Yes.
Concord.
Yes.
Contra Costa County. Corte Madera.
Yes.
Danville.
Yes.
El Cerrito.
Yes.
Fairfax.
Yes.
Fairfield.
Yes.
Lafayette. Larkspur. County of Marin.
Yes.
Martinez.
Yes.
Mill Valley.
Yes.
Moraga.
Aye.
City of Napa.
Yes.
County of Napa.
Yes.
County of Napa.
Yes.
Thank you. Novato. Oakley.
Yes.
Pinole.
He just left.
He just went down. Okay. Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Pleasant Hill.
Yes.
City of Richmond.
Yes.
Ross.
Yes.
San Anselmo.
Yes.
San Pablo.
Yes.
San Rafael.
Yes.
San Ramon.
Yes.
Sausalito.
Yes.
Solano County. Tiburon.
Yes.
Vallejo. Walnut Creek.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, so this is our last action item for this evening. The next item is item number 10, the proposed fiscal year 2022-23 deposit to MC's operating reserve fund. And this item will be presented by Garth, our CFO and treasurer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. So tonight, again, this is the last item, so I'm sure everyone's happy about that. So what we'd like to propose is that we defer some revenue from our last fiscal year, which ended on March 31st, into our operating reserve fund. So the operating reserve fund was established by the board in 2019. And the operating reserve fund allows us to defer revenue, in years when financial results are strong, or so that we can use in a future year when financial results may not be as strong. So the ORF, as we call it, is created under GASB Standard 62. Now, this is an accounting treatment. I want to make sure that everyone understands that. So we are just deferring revenue from last fiscal year, kind of banking it to use in a future fiscal year when we might need it to meet some covenants or other financial requirements. Okay. The other aspect of this is we have this cash. We actually have the revenue, the actual cash that goes into our actual cash reserves. But again, we don't recognize that revenue that we're suggesting that we defer in the fiscal year from an accounting standpoint, kind of bank it, if you will, for a future year. Okay. So the policy and actually the accounting rules require that the board approve the recommended deferral, and that would be into the fund. And then in a future year, if we wanted to use the revenue to take it out of the fund, the board would also have to approve that. So the board adopted a policy around this operating reserve fund such that our net revenues would have to be 5% of total revenues before staff could recommend a deferral. Last fiscal year, they're about 8.2% of total revenues. And also there's a cap. We are targeting that we wouldn't defer more than 10% of our total revenues in any given year. So a cumulative amount of 10%. And so in this particular case, we just be deferring, a couple of percent into the fund, kind of building up towards that 10% cap. Okay. So for last fiscal year, which ended at the end of March, staff is recommending a deferral of 15 million into the operating reserve fund. That would bring the total in the fund to 30 million. And that represents 4.4% of our total revenues for that year. So again, we're well under the cap, but we're above the minimum amount to transfer. So the fiscal impacts are that we defer 15 million. So that reduces our net revenues from an accounting standpoint by that amount. So that would reduce it from 56 million last year to 41 million and increase the balance in the ORF from 15 to 30 million. So the recommendation of staff is to approve the deferral of 15 million in fiscal year 2022-23, which ended in March, of these revenues into the ORF. Any questions or discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. 15 million that's been there for now almost 4 years. Has it earned any interest?
Of course, yes, absolutely, yes.
Okay, so the balance really isn't 15 million, it's 15 million plus whatever interest it's earned over that time. Is that correct?
No. It's a little bit that money as we have it in our accounts and in our investments, it is earning interest, but the actual accounting treatment is it's 30 million. We don't earn interest on that deferral, if that makes sense.
Okay, so the interest goes into the general fund.
That's correct.
Not into the ORF.
That's correct.
Okay, second topic. When we're calculating our reserves, does the ORF add to that? I mean, we have a policy, we're shooting for what? 60% of revenue of our operating revenue in reserves. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep.
And does this ORF, is that part of that or is it exclusive of that?
It's a little bit tricky.
I knew it.
It is not counted in that again, that target is that's the net position or accumulated net revenues. So when we defer a revenue, it doesn't get added to that, that amount doesn't get added for the cumulative amount. But there are two aspects to our reserve policy. One is that we're shooting for 60% of our operating expenses in a given year. That's our target. And And also that we want to have 240 days of cash on hand. So while a deferral does not, that amount doesn't get added to our net position, that $15 million, as I mentioned, we have that in cash and it does add to our cash on hand. So again, it's a little bit of a, we kind of get the best of both worlds. We get to defer the revenue and use it if we might need it in a given year, but we actually also have the cash and we are gaining by that amount on our days cash on hand.
Okay, so
Is that very clear?
our
Probably not.
operating, let's see, we're looking at operating expenses next year of what, 600 and something million dollars is
That's-
700.
No, it's like 600 million. Yeah.
Yes, okay. And so 60% of that, so 360 million in reserves is our target, and what's our current? We're sitting at 200 and some.
We can't hear you, Garth.
The mic went off, of course. Okay, I apologize. So it would be sitting at 244 million.
Okay.
With a deferral of 15. So without the deferral, it would be like 260 million.
Okay.
The target for last year, began because that was the end of the fiscal year last year. The target was 350 million.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Don, are there any questions from directors in San Rafael?
Director Gregory, so the remaining 41 million, is it considered fund balance that carries forward the next fiscal year?
Yes. Yeah, it is. It's in our total it's in our total funds. Yes, fund balance. That's correct. We don't, our budget is one where every year in which we produce net revenues, and we have every year produced some net revenue, that builds up in our net position, total net position. So that is our targeted reserve number that we're trying to get to 60% of operating expenses. That's a moving target as operating expenses go up because it's a 60% of that number. So yes, and that's the cumulative amount that MCE has earned and put into our net position through the end of the fiscal year last year. It's 244 million.
Are there any additional questions?
I see no other questions here in San Rafael.
All right, do we have any public comment?
I see no raised hands here by Zoom, but Mayor Kelman, did you have a question?
Thank you, Don. No, I was answered in that Q&A. Thank you.
All right, what's the pleasure of the board?
I'll move approval of the deferral of 15 million in fiscal 2022-23 revenues into the ORF.
Second.
Motion made by Director Perkins, seconded by Director Darling. Madam Clerk, please call roll.
I think they want to go home.
I think so.
Yeah. Belvedere. Benicia.
Yes.
Concord.
Yes.
Contra Costa County. Corte Madera.
Yes.
Danville.
Yes.
El Cerrito.
Yes.
Fairfax.
Yes.
Fairfield.
Yes.
Lafayette. Larkspur. County of Marin.
Yes.
Martinez.
Yes.
Mill Valley.
Yes.
Moraga.
Aye.
City of Napa.
Yes.
County of Napa and 4 Napa cities.
Yes.
Novato. Oakley.
Yes.
Pinole. Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Pleasant Hill.
Yes.
City of Richmond.
Yes.
Ross.
Yes.
San Anselmo.
Yes.
San Pablo.
Yes.
San Rafael.
Yes.
San Ramon.
Yes.
Sausalito.
Yes.
Solano County, Tiburon,
Yes.
Vallejo, Walnut Creek.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, our last item for this evening, board matters and staff matters. Would any members of the board like to share anything before we leave this evening? All right, seeing none. All right, any staff matters? All right, at this, I'm sorry, Don, well, you're about to say something. I see your
I
light
was
pop
just
on.
saying, no, we have no staff matters or board member matters here in Centerville.
All right, that's a quick meeting. Well, I will adjourn the meeting. The time is 8:49 PM. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.